So as I mentioned, we're going to shift a little bit now, still talking about developer productivity. And instead, now what we're going to do is look at some of the different ways that we're going to help you get more insight into the code that you've written and the code that you have running. And to do that, I'm thrilled to introduce Andy Fawcett, who, as a Salesforce employee now, is going to talk to you all about what it is that we're doing. Andy.
Thank you, Wade. Thank you, everyone. OK. So I'm really pleased to show to you all 2 new productivity features for admins and developers. And to help me do that, I've got Nate in the demo vehicle, and he's going to be taking on the role for this demo of an administrator that's just started at a new organization. And as part of that, he wants to discover how the objects are used as you're navigating around the application. So he's decided to use the new DX CLI command called tail. Now, the DX CLI command called tail actually allows you to debug and dump the debug logs to the console in a streaming fashion. So as you can see, he's navigating around the application, and it's constantly streaming those debug logs. He's not having to go into the console, click it, open it, search within the console. Great. Really cool. There's more. So there's some color coding in there as well. The color coding helps you pinpoint things in those graphs, and you can customize that color coding as well if you want. But let's try piping the output of tail into grep, because after all, he's interested in the queries. So let's run that again, and as he's navigating through, this time we're seeing a much reduced amount of information, just the queries themselves. So he's doing well. He's an administrator. It's day 1. He's already much more aware of the applications and the objects that are being accessed in the org. Great stuff. OK, let's switch track over to VS Code. Now Nate is involved in the Dreamhouse application. And it's been reported to him that there's a bug in the bot message functionality. It's not quite returning a message that he was expecting. So once again, he's going to break out the tail command. And he's filtering this time on user debug, because he happens to know he's put some debug telemetry in his code that will help him pinpoint the problem. So on the left-hand side of this split terminal, he's running the run test command. On the right-hand side, we see the debug information. So he's starting to get a better feel for how he can find a bit more about the root cause of this problem. But he needs a little bit more of an interactive process. So he decides to break out the Apex Replay Debugger. OK, so this is a feature that we're announcing for summer. It'll be in pilot. And it'll essentially allow you to take a debug log that you've generated yourself or somebody has passed on to you, a customer or a colleague, and replay interactively the steps that are executed in that debug log. So Nate's got a bit of an interest in terms of this particular breakpoint that he sets. And we can see he's already got the debug log open. He presses play. And this is the standard debug user experience in VS Code that he's using here. So if you're familiar with that, you're immediately familiar with Apex Replay Debugger. And of course, as you'd expect, as you're stepping through this, you can see all the variables changing in the context according to where he is in his current moment of execution. So Nate's getting a little closer to the cause of the problems, decides to set another breakpoint, and moves forwards, fast forwards through that debug log to the bot message, steps over that line, and sure enough, something doesn't look quite right. That message is not what he was expecting. So he's going to use another productivity feature to go straight into that class. He didn't have to go searching for it. He found it directly by going go to definition. And yeah, it looks like Nate's found the problem. How about that? He's debugged the issue, used the debug tail, found the problem. Now he's going to push that back up to his Scratch org. This is a Scratch org just for his purposes. He needs to be comfortable that it's resolved the issue. So before we close this part of the demo, we're going to highlight one more usability feature we've embedded in VS Code. See those little run all test and run test features? He's just going to run a test directly from within the editor. He doesn't need to go to the command line, figure out what to do. He runs it directly from the editor. This keeps your experience inside the editor, particularly if you're fond of test-driven development, running those tests iteratively. So to summarize, we've shown 2 features here, the Apex debug log tail command, suitable for both developers and administrators interested in monitoring what's going in the org, and also the Apex Replay Debugger. And did I mention it's free? Anybody can use it? It's available. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll pass back to Wade.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, we're very excited about those two new capabilities. And I know even personally, working on some Trailhead modules and apps for the Trailhead modules, I have availed myself of the new streaming logs with the tail command in the CLI. So very excited for all of you to use that. And that command is already available in the CLI. And then, as Andy mentioned, the replay debugger will be available this summer. And so what we're going to do now is pivot from developer productivity and talk again about release management, and in particular, how we can enable you all to do continuous delivery and to develop in a continuous fashion. And this really gets to the heart of what it is that we've been trying to do with Salesforce DX. And today, you can do this with a lot of great and powerful tools. In fact, we have a lot of partners like Capado and AutoRabbit and Flowsum and GearSet who are building really powerful release management capabilities in the platform. And we know many of you are rolling your own using Jenkins or TeamCity or Travis CI. And so what we wanted to do is actually enable all of you to do the same thing, but using what we happen to think is one of the industry-leading release management tools, and that is Heroku Pipelines and Heroku CI. And so I'd like to invite Andy Fawcett back up on stage to show us how we can do release management using Heroku Pipelines.
Thank you, Wade. Keeping me busy today. OK, so I'm ably supported by Nate. And in this demonstration, Nate is a developer of an application called Gifter. Gifter has been in production for 4 or 5 months now and has been in use and got some positive feedback. But one of the bits of feedback he has received I'd like to address is that when the images that are displayed come up, they're a little bit tiny. We can't really appreciate the lovely pictures of the cats in all their glory in that size image. So Gifter will allow us to insert those images into our chatter posts. That's the functionality of this application. So what we're going to see now is how Nate responds to that bit of feedback. Of course, he's going to go into the code and make the change. And because Nate is obviously under demo situation here, we're going to assume that ordinarily he would have done due diligence on this and run his tests and checked it all in his own personal Scratch org. But he's going to go ahead now and push this up to source control. So for this, he's using a tool called GitHub Desktop. It's a graphical interface onto Git. If you're not familiar with the CLI, it's a great way of getting into source control. So he's pushed that change up. The next thing he needs to do, because that change is in a special branch that's just for his particular change, he needs to notify the pipeline system that there is a change that he'd like to merge into the main develop branch so that it becomes part of the product officially. So he's now using the GitHub UI, and that pull request is being created directly from within the GitHub desktop application. So now that we've created that pull request, we can now take a look at the pipeline. So what the pipeline is showing us is a visual representation of essentially your life cycle of this change. The first step is something what we call a preview application. Now, of course, we're all familiar with the best practice of code reviewing that pull request with other developers and architects. But with a preview application, we can go beyond that. We can show it to other people in an isolated preview environment to get further confidence about the change that's been made. So using the power of DX CLI and the Heroku pipeline, you can see the logs that are coming up here are confirming that we've pushed that code automatically into a Scratch org. This is a genuine Scratch org created just for the purpose of this preview app. Now that that's been created, from the actual Heroku pipeline, we'll be able to open that preview app and take a look at that. So let's have a look, see if all those cat images are looking brighter than life. There they are. Wonderful. OK. Right, so we must remember we're in a session and we can't spend the day looking at cat gifs. So let's move on. What happens next? Well, we're embracing unlock packages with this demonstration. So the next thing that happens is we want to create a new version of that. And Nate has already realized that the pipeline can help him with this process. So once the release manager confirms that this branch is valid, everybody's had a look at it, the code reviews are passed, he merges this. And that triggers another piece of automation in the pipeline. The pipeline is now going ahead and creating a new version of that package. Remember, these are unlocked packages, similar in concept to AppExchange packages that you might download and install, but these are your packages. That new version is now being created, and by reviewing the logs, we can get confirmation, yep, our new package has been created. We can also take a look at the tests that have been executed as part of that. We'll get confidence that not only now that it looks good, the code's good, but also, crucially, the automated tests for this pass as well. So we're getting great visibility of the process. So the next step for this package is to take it through into your staging org. This is an extended environment where, of course, other people can experience the change in terms of integrations that are available in the staging org, as well as the change itself. So instead of pushing that change in a raw form into your staging org, we're going to install the package. And that process is as much as you would expect from an App Exchange installation, except, of course, it's automated with DX. So the logs that we'll end up seeing here are going to show us the automation of the package installation when we promote that through to the staging environment. Once we've promoted it through into the staging environment, we can invite other people to take a look at the application in situ in your staging org, in your sandbox. Once everybody's happy with that, then the process of simply taking it from your staging environment, your sandbox, into production is just to take that same package that we generated, the same version, and install that into your production environment. So what we've seen here is essentially an end-to-end demonstration of discovering a change that needs to be made, the change being made at a local workstation, validated, pushed up into source control, and automation of the life cycle of that change, flowing through a preview environment, into staging, and into production, albeit self-contained in a single package. So with that, I'll hand back to Wade, and hope you enjoy pipelines.
Great. Thank you, Andy. So what I want to highlight again is Heroku Pipelines provides a fantastic way for your entire team to work together, continuously delivering your applications to your end users. And I do want to go back and emphasize, though, the kind of core tenet with Salesforce DX, and that is not to be overly prescriptive about the tools that you use. Yes, you can use Heroku Pipelines, and we think it'll be a great experience. But as I mentioned before, we have a lot of partners that are also building very powerful release management tools that work really well with Salesforce DX and building apps on the platform. So it would not be a developer-related keynote if we didn't talk a little bit about what's coming. So I'm not going to go through this entire list. Feel free to take pictures, read on it, and so forth. I want to call out a few things, though, that because, again, this is a developer audience, I think that you're going to care about. If you look at Summer 18 down at the bottom, we have a pretty exciting new permission that we are bringing. And this is something really related to release management. And that is giving you all the ability to have modified metadata permissions without having access to all the data. And this is something we have heard for a long time. This has been on the ID Exchange for a long time. And you can now use this to actually drive release management processes with developers without essentially giving them the keys to the kingdom. So very excited about that. And of course, you saw the Apex Replay Debugger. This will be available for you to use as part of an open beta this summer, and it'll be going to GA in winter. Now, I want to call your attention to a few sessions here that you really should take advantage of going to and listening. And the thing that is exciting about this TrailheaDX is that unlike last TrailheaDX, when you just heard from a lot of us Salesforce PMs and engineers, we've got a lot of you talking here at TrailheaDX as well. So our customers, our partners, SIs, et cetera. And so I encourage you to go to their sessions and hear their stories about how they're building on the platform with Salesforce DX. The panel that will take place later today at 2 o'clock in particular will be fantastic. And if you want to banish all the bugs, you've got to check out Nick Chen later today at 3 p.m. Now, you may be wondering how you can learn to use some of these things yourself today. And so we've got a fantastic trail that you can go through and get not only all of these badges, but a lot of knowledge about how you can perform these things, how you can do release management, continuous integration. And I'd like to call out 2 brand new packages that we've released here at TrailheaDX: the unlocked packages for customers and the unlocked packages quick start. So in particular, if you want to try out Gifter, the GIF to Chatter app you never knew you needed, take a look at that quick start for unlocked packages. And so with that, thank you very much. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for building apps on our platform. Hope you have a great TrailheaDX.